Okay, I'll call the meeting of the August 17th.
I had mine muted, but I didn't turn my volume down, so I'm so sorry.
Okay, I'll call the meeting of the August 17th, 2023 TRPA Hearings Officer meeting to order at 2 p.m. My name is Marcia Birch, and I'll be serving as the hearings officer today. All right, so are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Seeing none, I will approve the agenda as it was posted. Item 3, public interest comments for no action. Any member of the public who wishes to address the hearings officer on any agenda item that's not listed as the announcement of appeal rights or any public hearing items may do so at this time. Public comments on the announcement of appeal rights or any public hearing item will be taken at the time those agenda items are heard. The hearings officer is prohibited by law from taking immediate action on or discussing issues raised by the public that are not listed on the agenda. Are there any public interest comments in the room?
Any member of the public would like to address the hearings officer, please raise your hand now. If you're on Zoom, you raise your hand by dialing *9. Or if you're in the room, you can just raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
All right, so we will close the public interest comments.
You are working on item A, correct?
No,
These are general
those are just general comments, correct? So if it's not on the agenda, you could make just a general comment to the hearings
I
officer.
understand.
Yeah. Okay, so the announcement of appeal rights, any decision of the hearings officer is appealable to the TRPA governing board. The notice of appeal, which can be found on TRPA's website, and associated fees must be filed within 21 days of the hearings officer's decision. All right, so we'll move on to the public hearing items, and we will start with hearing item A, the Murphy demolition rebuild of eligible historic resource, 747 Lakeview Avenue, City of South Lake Tahoe. And I believe this is Julie Rolls' item.
Yes, hi, this is Julie Roll, Senior Planner. Can you hear me okay in the room?
Yes. Julie,
Okay.
are there any changes to the staff report?
No changes to the staff report, no.
All right. So go ahead.
Yes, I'll give you just a little background on the project. So the project involves the tear down and rebuild of an existing lakefront single family residence. The existing home was built in 1930 and was determined by TRPA to be an eligible historic resource. It's considered a remaining example of Tahoe rustic architecture built during the first half of the 20th century. TRPA staff solicited comments from the California State Historic Preservation Office as part of the historic review, but they declined to provide comments. And in fact, as of July 2023, both California and Nevada State Historic Preservation Offices will no longer review projects and mitigation measures in the Tahoe Basin. That was per their request. As part of this permit, the required mitigation for the loss of this eligible historic resource is preparation of a resource recovery plan, which essentially documents the history of the property, and it includes photographs of its current condition. The applicant hired 2 qualified architectural historians to prepare the plan, and as a condition of the permit approval, will be required to donate a copy of this plan to the Lake Tahoe Historical Society. And I think a copy of the resource recovery plan was included with the staff report. The proposed new residence complies with all of TRPA standards for land coverage, height, scenic mitigation, water quality, BMPs, and everything that we review for. And I think that's it. I'll just add that I've not received any public comment so far or ahead of the hearing.
All right. Thank you, Julie. So you don't have any public comments and no comment from the Historic Preservation Board?
Exactly, correct.
Okay. So is there anyone representing the applicant who would like to present on this item? I see no one here. And Julie, were you expecting someone from the applicant?
There is one hand raised.
Oh, there's a hand raised.
Okay, great.
Melissa, if you can unmute yourself. You're
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I didn't have any questions, or anything like that, or comments, no concerns with the draft permit. I just thought it was pretty straightforward. And so we're looking forward to getting this, acknowledged.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank
Pardon?
you.
Full name.
Oh, yes, Melissa, could you state your full name for the record? Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Melissa Bickenbach, and I'm from Xline and Company, and I represent the applicant and property owner, the Murphys.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, so do we have any public comment on this item? Anyone in the room wish to comment on hearing item A, the Murphy demolition and rebuild?
I just have a question. You made a comment that the historic preservation hadn't weighed in on it. Are they aware of this application?
Yes, can I ask you to state your name for the record?
Dane Roberts.
And your question is, it's typical for the board to not have comments. And they are provided with the mitigation plan.
So the preservation organization is aware of it.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can add in on that. They were provided, when we got the historic determined application, at that time, we submitted everything to the California State Historic Preservation Office, and they basically came back and said, we don't have any comments, and in fact, we don't want to review these types of plans anymore. So my understanding is we're going through code updates right now to take it out of our code of ordinances that we're going to be providing those plans, because both states have asked us not to send them anymore. That's not really, I guess, relevant to this project approval, but just as some background.
Yes, thank you. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, just to clarify, we're still requiring a report, but not requiring consultation with an entity that is not responding, so. with
Yes. Exactly, yes.
All right, thank you. And can we check online to see if there are any public comments regarding agenda item A?
Any member of the public would like to address the hearings officer on this item, please raise your hand now by clicking on the raised hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or by dialing *9 if you're on the telephone. And there are no hands raised.
All right, so we will close the public comment period on this item, and I will take action. I will approve the findings contained in the staff summary and a finding of no significant environmental effect, and approve the project based on the staff summary and record evidence subject to the conditions contained in the attached draft TRPA permit. All right, so we'll move on to item B. This is St. Clair's Tahoe, St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, temporary use, school, 701 Mount Rose Highway, Incline Village, Washoe County. And I believe this is Bridget's item. Bridget, are there any changes to the staff report?
No.
All right.
So again, Bridget Cornell, and I am a planner in the permitting and compliance department with TRPA. So as you just mentioned, the proposed project is, so the affected parcel number is APN 124-03162. The property address is 701 Mount Rose Highway in Incline Village. You can see by the site plan that's up there, and hopefully online, that there is a street on the lower portion of the parcel, Kelly Drive, that separates the two church parcels. It's TRP file number ERSB 2023-0890. St. Clair's Tahoe is a school who is proposing to use the facilities at the St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church on a temporary basis to house both daycare for up to 20 children, as well as preschool, or 22 students in preschool through 8th grade. The daycare portion of the use is currently permissible. And let me back up a little bit by stating that this parcel is within the Wood Creek regulatory zone within the Washoe County, Tahoe area. Within the Wood Creek regulatory zone, daycare and preschools is a permissible use. Schools, we call it schools, kindergarten through secondary, is currently not a permissible use. The TRPA Code of Ordinances allows for uses not listed as permissible to be considered on a temporary basis, and they shall be processed as a special use. So that's why we're at hearings officer, because that there are special use findings that need to be made, and the project was noticed, the adjacent property owners were noticed. I did get some comments, we'll get into that later. But again, so St. Clair's School is proposing to use the existing church facilities to house these two components, a daycare and a school, and the school will be preschool through 8th grade. TRPA has already approved one temporary use at this location in July of last year. And so we again issued the temporary permit for temporary use by St. Clair's School. The Code of Ordinances allows for the temporary use to operate for 1 6-month period with an option to extend for a second 6-month period, which we did. We did extend the temporary use to get them through the first, one whole school year. In the meantime, the applicant has been working with Washoe County to attempt to get the Washoe County Tahoe area plan amended to add schools, kindergarten through secondary as a permissible use in the Wood Creek regulatory zone. Because of the length of time it takes to process an area plan amendment, we agreed with the school about 6 months ago that we would entertain a second temporary application while they continue to work with Washoe County pursuing the area plan amendment. So what is before you today is would be a permit for a second temporary use. Again, it's 1 6-month period. And then again, they would also have the option to extend it for a second 6-month period to get them through this upcoming school year. I did receive 11 separate comments on this project, and they all have been summarized and are accessible through the website on the meeting materials. The general, I tried to kind of categorize how all the comments, the topics of most of the comments, and I would put them into, there are kind of 2 separate traffic related categories. One was just the volume of cars that would be there and the circulation patterns in the area. And the other is several people did mention just the safety of traffic on Mount Rose Highway. And parking, there was a mention of parking and the impact of parking and noise just from the use on the property that the school does use a couple of areas outside of the structures themselves for recess and things like that, or outdoor activities. And then there was a comment that was raised regarding just the noise and the disturbance and the effect on the enjoyment of property. So that's kind of just in a nutshell how the comments are summarized. But again, we have received the 11 emails have been uploaded to the website. So they are accessible there if you want to read them in more detail. So again, what we are asking today is to approve a second temporary use at this location for that use.
Thank you, Bridget. And I have reviewed all of the written comments that were submitted. So
I'm sorry, I don't
Go
want to
ahead.
interrupt you, Marcia, but I did want to let you know that there are several applicants or several representatives of the applicant who are accessible on Zoom.
Okay.
Remotely. So
Okay.
there's 2 representatives from the consulting company who is processing the application, as well as 2 additional representatives from the school itself. And so they're available.
Okay, well, I have a few questions, but I'm going to wait until after we hear from the applicant and possibly some public comments as well.
Okay.
So if a representative of the applicant would like to speak, we'd be happy to hear from them.
I presume it will be Anne-Marie Lane to start.
Anne-Marie, I can see that you're on there. If you could unmute yourself. Oh, it looks like you did.
Yeah.
Hello, Anne Marie.
Not yellow.
Anne-Marie, can you hear us? She's unmuted. I'm not sure.
If she's sending me.
Not
Is she
sure.
there and unmuted and we just can't hear
She's
her?
unmuted and
Okay.
her video is off.
Is there someone else?
Yeah, anybody else from St. Clair's Tahoe, from representing the applicant, would like to speak briefly? Oh,
Alex,
Alex Roothouse, yeah, has his hand up.
Alex Roothouse, go ahead and unmute yourself.
This is Alex Roothouse from St. Clair's. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. I am, I guess, the applicant myself with St. Clair's School. I'm here to answer any questions or concerns. Bridget summed up, I think, everything accurately. And we have, last year when we went through this process, I think some of the concerns were very similar about the traffic circulation and flow and the potential noise of children. And we did do a very diligent job during last year to ensure that there was not additional traffic through the neighborhood. So we made sure that the traffic would flow in from Mount Rose Highway. And then as you can see on the overlay that's displayed on the screen, that traffic then has the ability to exit back onto Mount Rose Highway via Kelly Drive without driving past any residential properties. The house that's pictured in the lower left-hand corner is the rectory for the church, which is where the priest lives. So we were able to mitigate that concern and ensure that none of the school families drove through the residential neighborhood. Again, I'm here to answer any questions. I don't know if there's anything else specific that you need to hear from us, but we would certainly love to have this permit approved so we can continue with the development code amendment and with the school year, which starts imminently.
All right, thank you, Alex. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up for public comments. So why don't we start with the online so we can
Okay.
do this in a somewhat orderly way. See if does anyone online?
Switch has
Hello?
happened. Let's me share.
Oh,
Hello,
yeah,
this is Anne Marie Lane. Can you guys hear me?
yeah, now we can.
Great. My apologies for that. Is it okay if I jump in? I did want to represent my applicant here.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. So I would like to address the question of why now. As Bridget stated, the applicant, and I'm Anne Marie Lane for the record with Dal as the representative. We've been working with TRPA and Washoe County on how to process this development code amendment. We did submit for the development code amendment request in May of 2023. And we anticipate that the DCA application approval process will take 10 to 12 months to complete. If approved, the TUP would allow the school to operate on a temporary basis for the 2023-2024 school year, while the DCA amendment request goes through the approval process. A few items that I would like to note about the approval and what that would do. One is that education is a public benefit that should be allowed to support existing and new development. The applicant is offering a faith-based educational option that is otherwise not available in this community. The nearest Catholic church is in Reno or Carson City, and the approval of the TUP will improve the quality of the region for the residents by providing local access to faith-based education. The second thing is that it revitalizes an underutilized property. So the approval of the TUP in an existing facility that is currently underutilized during school hours balances the social health of the community by providing that faith-based option for school without the impacts that new development can have on the environment. Another item to note is that the approval of the TUP will contribute to both the economic and social well-being of the region. St. Clair's provides employment to 7 full-time staff. Lastly, the approval responds to the increase of school-age children within the community. The Washoe Tahoe Local Employee Housing Needs and Opportunities Study, which was completed in September of 2021, estimates that the population increased at a faster rate in Washoe Tahoe since 2019 than in prior years. It states the year 2020 resulted in significant change in most high amenity mountain communities throughout the West, driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, with many residents relocating to more rural, high quality of life places such as Washoe Tahoe. So the approval of the TUP responds to both the increase of school-age children within the community, as well as the post-pandemic desire for an increase in educational options. With
All right.
that, I am available to answer any questions as well.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and ask for public comment for those attending online.
Any member of the public would like to address the hearings officer on this item, please raise your hand now by clicking on the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9 if you've joined by telephone. There are no hands raised.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open public comment here in the room.
May I speak?
Oh, yes, go ahead. Just
I'm Hannah-Lori Catania. I live at 732 Betty Lane. The back of our property abuts to the upper right-hand corner of the map. And a couple of issues. We were never notified of the first special use permit. Didn't know about it till we heard the noise from the school, a fait accompli. And it does echo up into our property and up through the houses behind us as well. Because of the layout of the land, everything channels up. And it has been noisy. Kids have been throwing baseballs against the dumpsters. It sounds like gunshots going off. We've complained to the school and they say they will try to, keep the kids quieter, but kids are kids. They're proposing up to 45 students there this year. So that's an increase of what they had last time around.
No, it's the same number.
Is
I don't need to- Yeah.
No, they said the 5 were coming from St. Patrick's.
Oh, I'm just saying, whatever we permitted last year, it's the same this year.
Okay. But the other thing is, they're making it sound like there is a need for additional schooling. The fact is that in Incline Village, they're looking at combining the high school and the middle school into one building because of insufficient enrollment. There is plenty of room for students to be enrolled. St. Clair's parents just choose not to use the public school system. However, there's also properties available within the already existing zoned areas in Incline Village that could be rented. St. Patrick's is one of them. There's another one that I cannot remember at the moment. Additionally, they want to put temporary modular buildings into that lower parking lot. That lower parking lot was surveyed as unbuildable, and Father Bill knew about that. It's because of the drainage and the creek below it. Getting around not being able to build on that lot by putting up modular building is underhanded, in my opinion. But what is that going to do to the parking for the church? Already with that parking lot in use, there's always parking on Kelly and always parking on Montrose Highway on Saturday and Sunday when church is in session. And what nobody seems to want to acknowledge is that right across the driveway from the church and Kelly Drive is the runaway truck ramp. The runaway truck ramp just last month had another truck have to use it. Trucks are coming down Mount Rose Highway at 50 miles an hour or higher. Brakes burn out. You're going to have people slowing down to turn into the church and turn into Kelly in greater numbers than we have on the Sunday when trucks don't run that much. We have had 2 tragic deaths on that truck ramp within the last 10 years. One of the truck drivers who died, in my mind, was a hero. There was a mother coming down with her children in the car, and he passed her on the right and took the truck ramp and died rather than crash into that car. Now, that's the kind of situation this is there. In addition, Mount Rose Highway is our fire safety evacuation route. They're having drills there yesterday to practice how we get out of town. Now, how are we going to have parents, maybe 45 this year, but it could be 200 when they go ahead and put these buildings in? All that traffic coming through there, trying to get to their kids while the town is trying to evacuate. Incline Village has 3 routes out of town. And if the fire is coming in and one or more of those is done, people are gonna die trying to get out. And putting the school in that spot severely hampers that plan. So I'm very upset about doing this. My husband reminded me the last thing I wanted to say is property values. We bought our home in that area because it's a nice, quiet neighborhood, and it was zoned for a nice, quiet neighborhood. You rezone it to become a school,
Who wants to buy a house next to a school?
our property value is gonna go down, because people don't wanna be next to noisy schools when they buy a house. And it's not just ours, it's the people across Mount Rose Highway, it's the people on Kelly Lane. So the community is not in favor of this. The parish is split right down the middle with major donors who gave them the money for that administrative building that they're now using for St. Clair School, having gotten almost a $500,000 refund on their donation because they parish had given the project as no additional use, administrative and kindergarten services only, and the parish turned around and leased it to St. Clair's at $500 a month, which doesn't even cover the utilities. So, you know, the parish is not in favor of this. Some of them are, many of them are not. The neighborhood, all the neighbors I know about, none of them like this idea. And you're making it possible for them to continue on and on with the Washoe County. I've been to the church, I've been to their meetings, they didn't want to hear any of our concerns. They say, oh, you can always present that to Washoe County later on down the line. So I feel you people are in a position to do something about it. You should take some responsibility, not just for the special use permit, but for what's going on in the neighborhood.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have some questions, but I'm gonna go ahead and hear from everyone. So let's go ahead with our next commenter. Anyone else would like to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Dane Roberts, and I live directly across Mount Rose Highway from the school, up in the church. And I've lived there for 8 years, and like my fellow neighbor here, I was never notified of any rezoning application for the preschool or yet this process that's going on right now. I learned through a concerned neighbor that knocked on my door. So one of my questions is, how does Washoe County notify people when there's a request to rezone property?
So,
Do you want me to reply to that?
well, I'm gonna
Or
go
not?
ahead and say this process today is for the temporary use permit. This is not for the change that you're just talking about through Washoe County. So it's a separate process.
It's the second time though.
Yeah.
It's not the first, I mean, I could see a temporary use
That's-
for emergency, but this is the second temporary use, which leads to a third. What are you gonna do? Tell the kids, you're gonna go to school here for a year and a half, but then you're gonna have to find another school? I mean, you see, if you prove this,
So
you're going down. the path.
I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna finish up with this gentleman who's commenting. And again, I just want to make the distinction between the two separate projects, right? So this is for the temporary use permit. The Washoe County process is a separate application, and I'm not aware of what their notice situation is.
Part of the reason I came to was just to learn. I was given a website and I couldn't find the application online on the Washoe County site, so maybe somebody could help
Okay,
me find that.
and you know, possibly after the meeting, maybe you can talk to Bridget about that. But again, it's a Washoe County process. It's not a Tahoe Regional Planning
Yeah, this is
Agency
Tahoe
process.
Regional Planning Agency, so it's on the TRPA website.
Yeah.
But I would also like to echo several of the points that were made. It's a very busy road. Mount Rose Highway is extremely busy. And when I pull out from Gale every day, you just look and there's no one coming and you turn out and next thing you know, there's somebody on your bumper. I mean, they just fly down Mount Rose, and it's amazing that there haven't been more accidents on there. You mentioned the runaway truck ramp. That's a huge concern. I mean, these semis come down the hill and they need that and they use it often to prevent further accidents. I have also noticed an increase in noise. because of the topography there, the sound just carries right up the mountain. And on Saturdays and Sundays, when church is breaking out, we hear a lot of, it's just conversation stuff, but you would be surprised how much noise comes up the hill. And it has increased with the school. And like my neighbor, if I wanted to live in a school zone, I would have purchased in a school zone. And I didn't. I wanted quiet, peace and quiet, so. It's bad enough I've got the highway there, but then you've got the additional noise from the school, so I just think it's a bad idea.
All right, well, thank you. So do we have anyone else who would like to comment?
Please. My name is Scott Comstock. You don't mind if I sit, do you?
No, please do.
Okay. We also live in the neighborhood and back up to the church property. And what we have found out is in the neighborhood, people either don't know about what's going on at the church, or if they do know, they're against what is going on, the temporary use permits and the zoning changes and that kind of stuff. They do not know. Now, there was a neighborhood meeting that I got a little yellow postcard to and went to, and it was confusing and people didn't understand how it worked. And neither did I until it was over. And then I checked on the website to find out what went on at the meeting. The results from the meeting are horribly skewed. So that, from what I understand, now, wait a minute, is the neighborhood meeting having anything to do with TRPA?
I was just gonna stop you.
Of course.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's not related to
Okay,
this
we'll get right back
temporary
to
use
TRPA.
permit. Thank you, thank you.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I know, there are two processes going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so, there has been one temporary use 6-month permit with another extension. And we spoke with Bridget about it last year and we said, we don't quite understand temporary. Temporary doesn't mean temporary. You know, we're going to be talking about this again. And it has come up again, that there is nothing temporary about it. This is just, from what we understood, last summer was temporary so that they could find a permanent spot somewhere. Now, at $500 a month, this is pretty simple that this is what they want to be their permanent spot. Now, the TRPA is considering another 6-month temporary use permit with another 6-month extension that will go through the next school year. It seems as though that would be rewarding bad planning, bad behavior. If you knew a long time ago that you were going to be wanting this location on a permanent basis, I don't think that the request would be today. When does anybody know when school starts?
I don't know for certain.
In the next 2 weeks, possibly?
I would guess.
Okay, that's bad planning. So the temporary use permit avoids all the mitigation processes of the TRPA, which are there for a reason. So they study traffic and they study the different things that are going to affect the neighborhood, which these folks that are here pretty much summed up for you, and I'm glad they were here, so I didn't have to go so deep. And the rewarding of a temporary permit for bad planning just doesn't make sense. It doesn't, I don't see any reason to have this upheaval in a short period of time. Last year, the first time we did speak about that, you said, I'm sorry, I'm speaking with Bridget.
That's it.
You did say the school is going to start soon and we've got to get moving on this. Well, we're a whole year later and the school is going to start soon. And we're moving on it 2 weeks before the school starts. It doesn't make sense. I'm really glad that many of my points were brought up for the neighborhood. And let me see. The safety evacuation routes for fires is scary. They had a huge drill yesterday. And it just so happens that Mike Schwartz, the former chief of the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District, lives in that neighborhood. And he mentioned that there is an area for school that is zoned for schools where the schools are, so that the first responders can deal with them all in one area of town. This area that butts up to Route 431 is not in that area, and it would separate the first responders in case of an emergency. And that made a whole lot of sense to me. In the meantime, he put his house on the market. So he's not very happy with living in that neighborhood. We gotta stay away from zoning. Neighborhood meeting. And that's where the neighborhood meeting went. Okay, special conditions. The first staff report had a list of special conditions. This year's staff report has no special conditions.
In the permit?
In the staff report? Or
They should be in the draft permit.
very, okay, very small. Oh, no, I see them all now. Okay, the placement of the playground that was prohibited in the first staff permit now needs to be mapped as to where the playground that was prohibited is going to be. This is between the two staff reports. The prohibited playground now needs a map to show you where the prohibited playground is going to be. I think that the people that run the school are not taking the process of the TRPA permit seriously. Applying for it at a late date